Nothing could have prepared me for Nami's past. 6 months ago, when I started my One Piece journey, I thought I was signing up for a goofy, lighthearted pirate adventure. Straw hats, dumb jokes, stretchy boy punches a clown, right? I knew there'd be emotion eventually, but I honestly thought we were still in the fun warm-up arcs phase. And then I hit Arlong Park, and Nami's past walked in, sat me down, and absolutely wrecked me because everyone in the comments has been chanting the same prophecy since episode 1. Just wait until Arlong Park. Nami's backstory will change everything. You think you're fine now, but nothing could have prepared you. And I believed you, I really did. But I kinda thought it was just standard anime hype. Oh, you sweet summer child. Even with all that buildup, nothing could have prepared me for how cruel this story actually is when you're watching it blind. Where do I even begin with how hard this arc hit me emotionally? Nami starts as the greedy navigator, the thief who robs pirates, plays the crew, and smiles while she does it. I was laughing, calling her a menace, assuming it was just her quirky thing. Then Oda rips the mask off and shows you Kokoyashi village living under Arlong's boot, and suddenly, every berry Nami has ever stolen is her literal blood price to buy back her home. Like, that is insane. Belle-mère's decision might be one of the most brutal, beautiful moments I've seen in any shonen. Standing there in front of Arlong, she could save herself by denying her kids. She doesn't. She chooses to die as Nami and Nojiko's mother instead of living as a stranger. Watching Nami hear that gunshot, knowing her entire life of guilt and self-hatred is born in that single second, this arc completely broke me down. I was just sitting there, an emotionally crumpled man, staring at my screen. And it doesn't stop. Nami clawing at her tattoo, stabbing her own arm in the dirt, screaming as if she can carve the trauma out of her skin. Luffy quietly grabbing her hand, stopping her, putting the hat on her head without asking for an explanation. Then, that shattered helped me as she finally lets herself fall apart. How is this the same series that had Buggy's body parts flying around a few episodes ago? In my opinion, that sequence alone is top-tier storytelling. I honestly think Nami's past might be one of the most emotionally effective, tightly written backstories I've seen in any shonen. And by the end of this video, I want to explain why it might secretly be the heart of early One Piece. The Tangerine Orchard, the maps, the deal with Arlong, the Marine's betrayal. Every tiny detail is doing damage. So, with all of that said, let's get into a structured, moment-by-moment breakdown of Arlong Park from a blind watcher's perspective, and talk about how Oda slowly escalates the stakes until a simple tangerine tree can make you cry. Title card chaos, when a fun pirate show turns into trauma, and talk about how Oda slowly escalates the stakes until a simple tangerine tree can make you cry. Smash cut. My stunned face is frozen on screen for half a second, and then the music just slams in. The usual chill track is gone. We go full chaos. Drums kicking, electric guitar wailing, the channel logo rockets in from the side and absolutely body checks the frame like Luffy punching through Arlong's teeth. Every hit of the beat has this crunchy impact sound, like those brutal Arlong Park blows that made me physically flinch while watching. On the downbeat, we hard cut to Nami's early greedy thief antics. She's flipping through stacks of berries, winking at the camera, robbing pirates blind while I'm in the corner of the frame going, "Look at this little menace." Next beat, jump cut to Arlong's shadow dropping over the village, that long, jagged nose and the most evil grin you've ever seen. Like, that is insane tonal whiplash already, right? The music keeps building, and we slam into Belle-mère in the Tangerine Orchard. Warm light, soft colors, her cigarette, that tiny smile as she ruffles Nami's hair. Then, snare hit, back to Arlong's teeth, then back to baby Nami drawing maps on the floor, then back to the tattoo burning on her arm. It's all synced so tight to the rhythm that you feel the story and the trauma punching in on every single beat. Nothing could have prepared me for how wrong this intro feels in the best way. The track is hype, almost goofy with how fast the visuals are flying by, but every image is heavy. You've got this bright, chaotic, "Hey, welcome back to the channel" energy colliding with Nami screaming in the rain as the music peaks. It's a pattern interrupt on purpose. It's me saying, yeah, we're still having fun here, but we are also walking straight into the darkest part, the tattoo covered, turning a brand into a choice. And the crazy part is, Oda doesn't let us stay in that high for long, because almost immediately, we have to deal with that mark. That brand. The thing that's been sitting on Nami's arm, this entire arc like a quiet scream. Nothing could have prepared me for how much power there was in just revealing a new tattoo. When Nami pulls back her sleeve and shows the tangerine and the pinwheel, it's so small, right? It's not some giant glowing power-up. It's just this cute little symbol, but the impact is insane. A tangerine for Belle-mère's orchard, a pinwheel for Genzo's goofy little hat that used to make her laugh. In one design, her body stops being a billboard for Arlong and becomes a tribute to the two people who actually loved her. That's crazy storytelling economy. Two simple shapes and suddenly her entire story is reframed. What really hit me is that she doesn't laser it off. She doesn't pretend it was never there. She covers it. The outline, the placement, the history, it's all still underneath. In my opinion, that choice is everything. It's like the arc is saying, you can't erase what happened to you, but you can decide what it means going forward. That's such a mature idea for a series that also has rubber pirates getting launched into the sky every other episode. Real quick, can we talk about how wild it is that One Piece casually dips into bodily autonomy and trauma recovery like this? The Arlong tattoo was literally a mark of ownership, a constant reminder that Nami was property. Watching her try to stab it out of her own skin earlier, you feel how deep that self-hatred goes. And now, instead of destroying her arm, she's reclaiming it. She's saying, "This is mine. My skin, my story, my choice." Like, that is insane for a shonen manga that also has a reindeer doctor and a guy who fights with kitchen knives. For me, this new tattoo might be one of the most beautiful visual symbols in early One Piece. Every time we see it, it's doing double duty. It's a scar and a love letter. It quietly reminds you of where she came from, of Belle-mère standing there saying she won't deny her daughters, of Genzo running around with that stupid pinwheel just to make a crying kid smile. But it also points to the family she has now, the crew that backed her so hard that the symbol of her abuse literally gets overwritten by love. And when you put it side by side with that dirt road breakdown, her jamming a knife into her arm, begging the mark to disappear, this arc completely broke me down, because we've gone from Nami trying to destroy herself to Nami carefully choosing what part of her past deserves to stay. That's character growth you can see inked right onto her. With all of that said, let's get into how the crew responds to this new Nami and why that changes everything. The village freed, grief, celebration, and survivor's guilt. How the crew responds to this new Nami and why that changes everything. But real quick, we have to sit in the village first because nothing could have prepared me for how Kokoyashi feels in the immediate aftermath. You'd think it would just be fireworks and partying, right? Instead, it's this crazy mix where people are crying and laughing in the same breath. You see villagers hugging like they're afraid to let go, kids actually running around without flinching at every loud sound. It's like the air itself finally exhaled. The way the story frames it, you can almost feel that invisible weight lifting. Doors that were always half shut are wide open. People are talking in the streets instead of whispering. And yet, even in all that hype energy, the camera keeps cutting to these quieter moments that just punch you in the gut. A family sitting down to eat, and there's an empty seat they don't talk about. A villager walking past a house that's clearly abandoned, pausing just a little too long. It's freedom, but it's not clean. In my opinion, those are the shots that make this arc feel so mature. The show refuses to pretend that beating Arlong magically resets the clock. We see people visiting graves with fresh flowers, not as a one-off, but as part of their new normal. Genzo's standing there with his scars out in the open, not hiding them, but also not bragging about them. He's proof that surviving doesn't mean you walked away untouched. How many times did this village almost give up before this moment finally hit? And then you have Nami, stuck right in the middle of all that joy and all that pain. She's smiling, she's laughing, she's getting dragged into dances and food and chaos, and it's beautiful to watch because you can tell part of her is genuinely lighter. But the story keeps slipping in these quieter shots. Nami alone at Belle-mère's grave, fingers tracing the name, that tiny smile that never quite reaches her eyes. Or her standing in the orchard, surrounded by tangerines and sunlight, and she still looks like she's about to cry. This arc completely broke me down because that's survivor's guilt drawn in bright colors. She won. She saved them. And yet, she'll never get back the woman who chose to die rather than deny her as a daughter. Like, that is insane emotional territory for a shonen to just casually live in. Surviving Arlong isn't a single victory. It's a lifelong process of carrying both gratitude and grief in the same heart. And even while the village is finally breathing, you can feel Nami already halfway out the door emotionally. She fought for this home, but the crew is the reason she could finally say, "Help me," in the first place. So as the music swells and everyone celebrates, you can almost see that map in her head splitting in two, the place she belongs to and the people she's choosing. With all of that said, let's get into how the Straw Hats step into that tension and what it means for Nami to actually leave this village behind. Stealing from her own village, Nami's final goodbye prank. So, when we talk about Nami actually leaving, this is where Oda hits me with something I did not see coming at all. Nothing could have prepared me for the fact that her goodbye to Kokoyashi is a crime spree. Like, of course it is. Of course, the way this girl says thank you is by allegedly robbing everyone blind on her way out. We cut to her darting through the village, and suddenly, every single villager is patting their pockets like, "Wait, where's my wallet? Where's my cash?" And the rumor spreads instantly. Nami's at it again. It feels crazy how fast the old narrative snaps back into place, right? All that sacrifice, all that build, and in one moment she's the greedy thief again, running off with their money, just like when she was working for Arlong. You can feel the sting in that misunderstanding, even as it plays like slapstick. And the way they all chase her, yelling, faces red, waving tools and shoes and whatever they can grab, it's genuinely funny. You laugh. I laughed. But at the same time, you know what she's actually running from. You know this is the only home she's ever known. The same streets she walked, counting every single berry toward that 100 million goal. The same people who looked at her and saw betrayal without ever knowing the truth. So when they're screaming thief again, it hits emotionally in this really layered way. Are they mad? Are they scared to lose her? Is it both? Then we get the reveal, and this arc completely broke me down all over again. Real quick, we see what she actually left behind. Tangerine seedlings, little gifts, these quiet signs that she wasn't taking from them. She was planting something for them. The girl who once funneled every coin into Arlong's pocket is now sneaking around to give back, but in the most Nami way possible, as a prank. Like, that is insane, right? Who else says, "I love you" by fake robbing the entire village and then leaving them with future tangerine trees? In my opinion, this is Oda at his best tonally. It's comedy and ache in the same breath. You're watching these villagers fume while standing over these tiny seedlings that are literally Belle-mère's legacy continuing. You remember that cozy orchard, that bright orange warmth that stood in complete contrast to Arlong Park's cold stone and iron. Now, Nami is taking that warmth and replanting it as she goes. She's not erasing her past, she's multiplying it. And the key thing for me is she hasn't suddenly become this soft, perfectly healed person. She's still the playful, chaotic navigator who will pick your pocket, flip your map, and laugh in your face. The difference is that now she can do it without Arlong's shadow sitting on her shoulder. She can troll her entire village and have that prank be an act of love instead of a survival tactic. That's such a subtle but powerful shift in how the story frames her. The last image that really stuck with me is Nami sprinting toward the Going Merry, villagers screaming behind her, Belle-mère's orchard glowing in the background like this permanent sunset. It feels like watching someone choose a new life while still carrying their old one in their heart. Every step a mix of guilt and freedom and hype, and just when you think that's the end of it, Oda has one more tiny, devastating detail waiting on that ship that completely reframes what this goodbye actually means. Putting the hat back, Nami officially joins the crew, and that tiny, devastating detail is that the goodbye isn't actually the end. Because the second we cut back to the Going Merry and Nami does that dramatic sprint and leap onto the ship, you feel it instantly. This isn't a thief boarding a ride. This is someone coming home. The way she lands is so crazy specific. She doesn't tiptoe on like, hey, sorry about the whole betrayal thing. She catapults herself right into their space, grabs the treasure, starts doing her little money gremlin routine, and everyone just rolls with it. Usopp's yelling, Sanji's simping, Zoro's pretending not to care, and you can see Nami testing it like, if I act like my old self, do you still want me? And the answer is yes. Of course they do. Real quick, can we talk about Luffy and the hat here? Because nothing could have prepared me for how casual that was. He just walks up, takes his treasure back off her head like it's the most normal thing in the world, pops it on, grins, and that's it. No big speech, no explain yourself. In my opinion, that tiny motion hits harder than another punch to Arlong's face. It's Luffy saying, I trusted you, I still trust you, let's go. And the crew follows his lead perfectly. Nobody sits her down like, so, about the whole working for Arlong for 8 years thing. They just start teasing her about money again, arguing about shares, acting like this is any other day on the ship. How insane is that as a form of forgiveness? It's not denial, it's acceptance so deep they don't need to interrogate her trauma to validate it. That's family energy, not pirate HR. For me, this is the real payoff to the help me moment. She didn't just get rescued from Arlong Park, she got permission to stop being the strong one all the time. She doesn't have to hold the entire village on her back anymore. She can yell, she can cry, she can be greedy and goofy and brilliant, and her value isn't tied to how much she suffers. This arc completely broke me down, ripped me up, and rebuilt Nami as someone whose skills are finally being appreciated instead of exploited. And Oda marks that shift visually so well, it's actually kind of rude. The new tattoo isn't just a cover-up, it's a declaration. The tangerine and the pinwheel, Belle-mère and Genzo, literally inked into her skin over the mark of her enslavement. Then, you see her smile on the ship, and it's different. It's not that sharp, guarded merchant grin. It's loose, relaxed. She leans on the rail, the wind in her hair, and for the first time, it feels like she's actually watching the horizon for herself. Meanwhile, Kokoyashi gets this insanely emotional send-off. The villagers waving, Genzo crying with that same pinwheel spinning, and they're not begging her to stay. They're trusting that she's in good hands. That visual of the Merry sailing away, orchard in the distance, villagers tiny but still waving. That's the show telling you the axis has shifted. From this point on, every single map Nami draws is different. It's not a ledger for Arlong's empire anymore. It's a love letter to the journey she chose. Even the boring navigation chatter suddenly feels emotionally loaded because you know each course correction is for her dream and her crew's future. And the crazy part is, the story's just getting started. Rewatching Nami's early scenes. The pain, hiding in plain sight. And the crazy part is, the story's just getting started. So, real quick, I want you to do something with me. Mentally hit rewind on the series. Go all the way back to those very first Nami episodes before you knew a single thing about Kokoyashi, Belle-mère, any of it. Remember how you felt watching her then? The greedy navigator, the scam queen, the pirate thief. Nothing could have prepared me for how different all of that would feel in hindsight. Think about that first time she teams up with Luffy just to steal from Buggy. At the time, it's funny, right? She's like, I only steal from pirates, I hate pirates. And we all laugh and go, okay, cool, that's her thing. But now, knowing she's funneling every single berry into this impossible 100 million deal with a monster back home, that same line feels like it's soaked in venom and fear. When she says she hates pirates, she's not joking. She's seeing Arlong every time. Rewatch her freaking out whenever Luffy does something insane that might wreck the ship or lose the treasure. Back then, I just thought, oh, she's the straight man of the crew, the responsible one yelling at the idiot captain. Classic anime dynamic. But now, it plays like a full-on trauma response. Of course she panics when money is at risk. That's not just greed, that is literally her village's lives, her mother's death, that tattoo on her arm, all sitting in a little orange bag that this rubber moron is dangling over the ocean. And the emotional distance hits way harder too. Remember how often she keeps people at arm's length, how quick she is to ditch the crew if it benefits her. In my opinion, that's not just Nami's a bit shady, that's someone who has been taught brutally that attachments get you killed. She flirts, she jokes, she manipulates, but she does not let anyone close enough to see her breaking. Watching that again after Arlong Park, you start spotting these tiny cracks in the mask that feel crazy intentional. I really appreciate how Oda walks this razor-thin line with her. Before the reveal, she's entertaining, she's hype, she's the comic relief thief who smacks Luffy for being dumb. But if you look closely, the humor is a shield. The way her eyes go dead for a second when someone brings up money. The way she shuts down any talk of real dreams or going back home. This arc completely broke me down because it made me realize all those simple traits were actually warning lights. And that is insane from a writing perspective. What looked like basic characterization was a carefully constructed facade. So when the truth finally hits, it doesn't feel like a cheap twist. It feels earned. You go, oh, the story was telling me the whole time? I just wasn't listening. So now I'm low-key terrified in the best way. Because if Nami's joke greed was hiding this much pain, what else is sitting in plain sight with the rest of the crew? The gluttony, the cowardice, the pervy gags. How many of those are actually time bombs waiting to go off? With all of that said, let's get into how Arlong Park turns that slow burn setup into one of the most devastating payoffs in the entire series. Why Arlong Park hits harder than some bigger arcs. So here's what completely fried my brain. This isn't some world war. This isn't Marineford. This isn't 1,000 factions clashing. It's one village, one girl, one monster with a smile full of teeth. And it hit me way harder than a lot of bigger arcs usually do. Nothing could have prepared me for how heavy something this small scale could feel. We know One Piece is eventually going to throw massive wars at us, right? Admirals, emperors, kingdoms burning, the whole crazy spectacle. But Arlong Park feels like Oda saying, "Cool, but watch what I can do with just a map, a pinwheel, and a tangerine tree." Like, that is insane. Because when the entire story is basically locked into Kokoyasi Village, Arlong's crew, the Marines, and this tiny Straw Hat squad, the camera has time to breathe. It just sits with these tiny details. You feel the dirt path up to Belle-mère's house. You feel the shade of the orchard and the way the wind hits that little pinwheel. You watch the villagers bargain, laugh, fake smile through their fear. It stops being the world and starts being a place you could actually live in. And that makes every single threat feel personal instead of abstract. In my opinion, watching one child grow up under that kind of oppression and then finally break free is way more emotionally brutal than watching thousands of nameless soldiers get blasted in some hype battlefield. With the soldiers, it's like, wow, crazy visual, big explosion. With Nami, you know every scar on her heart. You've seen the tattoo, the betrayal by the Marines, the way she counts every berry like it's a piece of her own body. When she's on her knees stabbing her arm, I didn't feel like I was watching a character. I felt like I was watching someone I'd actually grown up with just collapse. And that's what really broke me down here. This arc completely broke me down, ripped me up, and left me as this new, emotionally crumpled man over. One backstory in East Blue. If Oda can pull this level of intensity out of a single village, what happens when he scales this up to an entire kingdom, or a whole sea, or the actual world stage? Are we just going to be crying every other episode? Because honestly, I'm excited and terrified at the same time. It kind of sets a baseline, right? Arlong Park quietly tells you, this is what emotional payoff looks like in this series. So when people say, just wait until Eni's lobby, just wait until Marineford, I suddenly believe them in a very real, very scary way. If this is the starter course, what does the main dish do to me? Real quick, I want to throw this to you. Even knowing all the insanity that comes later, do you still put Arlong Park up there as one of the most emotionally powerful arcs in One Piece? Is it the small scale that does it for you? Or do the bigger wars hit harder? Let me know, because where we go next might completely change that answer. Money, maps, and motherhood, the themes under Nami's story. And the wild part is, when you zoom out from all the crying and knife stabbing and hat on the head greatness, Nami's arc is basically Oda sitting you down and giving you a crash course in how power works. Money, maps, moms, all of it. Nothing could have prepared me for how dense this little village story actually is. Let's start with money, because this arc treats berries like oxygen. For Arlong, cash is a choke collar. He doesn't just tax the village, he literally puts a price tag on existing. Pay or die. That fee-for-living thing feels crazy close to real-world systems where poor people are punished just for being alive, right? Nami flips that same currency into survival. Every theft, every scam, every greedy navigator joke from earlier in the story secretly becomes her trying to buy back a future. Then, the Marines roll up, pretend to be justice, and steal the 100 million anyway. That moment hurt because it's not just one bad guy, it's the entire structure saying, your effort never mattered. Then, you've got maps, and this is where it gets insane for me. Knowledge is literally Nami's superpower. Her charts make ships move, make pirates rich, make dreams possible. Under Arlong, that gift becomes a chain. He locks her in a room and turns her into a human resource, like some twisted office job where the cubicle bars are just more obvious. But with the Straw Hats, that same skill flips back into freedom. Drawing a map of the entire world isn't just a cute dream, it's her reclaiming authorship of the seas that used to own her. In my opinion, that's such a powerful switch, from being forced to map Arlong's territory to choosing to map her own horizon. And then, Belle-mère. Where do I even begin with this woman? Her saying, They're my daughters while knowing it's a death sentence is one of the rawest motherhood moments I've ever seen animated. She doesn't magically fix poverty. She's broke, her house is tiny, the orchard is modest. Love doesn't erase the hardship, it just gives it a reason. The tangerine trees become this symbol of, yeah, life sucks, but it's still worth planting something. No wonder Nami carries that orchard on the Going Merry later. What really messed me up is how quietly this arc talks about systemic oppression and corrupt institutions. Arlong's racism, the Marines' corruption, the way the villagers normalize suffering, Nami's survivor's guilt for living when Belle-mère didn't. You could strip the fishmen out and it still feels uncomfortably real. And yet, it never stops being an adventure. We still get hype fights, dumb jokes, Luffy being Luffy. That's why this arc completely broke me down. It's not just sad backstory, it's that all these themes mirror real injustice, and they're all sitting on the shoulders of a character I've been laughing with since episode 1. Like, that is insane. With all of that said, let's get into how that help me moment and the walk to Arlong Park turn all of this into one of the most cathartic payoffs I've ever experienced watching anime. From distrust to devotion, Nami's relationship with Luffy. And the crazy part is, nothing could have prepared me for how all of that pain gets funneled into Nami and Luffy's relationship. Because when you roll it back to the beginning, Nami treats Luffy like the definition of a useful idiot. He's this rubber battering ram she can point at other pirates, while she quietly stacks berries for her secret goal. She lies, bails on him, steals the ship, and I'm sitting there early on like, okay, she's funny, she's greedy, she's dangerous, but she is absolutely using this man. And Luffy's response is just, cool, you're our navigator. No interrogation, no, what's your tragic backstory? Nothing. In my opinion, that's the first insane thing about their dynamic. He accepts her exactly as she is, even when as she is, looks super sketchy. But real quick, look at the little seeds Oda plants before Arlong Park blows everything open. Luffy never questions her navigation. Storm, whirlpool, Grand Line log pose nonsense. If Nami points, he goes. When she snaps at him or smacks him, he doesn't get defensive, he just rolls with it. When Buggy's crew or random goons threaten her, he steps in without making it a big speech. How many times does he quietly choose her side before he even knows what side she's on? That's why the help me hits so hard, because this isn't some random plea. It's the moment the girl who sees everyone as a variable finally decides this one idiot is safe. Nami has spent years treating people like pieces on a board so she can maybe save her village. And then you have Luffy, who, in this arc, shows that his greatest strength isn't just I punch hard. It's emotional intelligence that looks like stupidity until you zoom in. He knows when not to ask questions. He sees her freaking out around Arlong and just doesn't pry. He knows when to lend the hat, which for him is basically handing over his soul, and when the person who made his friend cry is standing right there. No therapy session. Just walk, line up the crew, and punch Arlong so hard the entire story shifts. After the fight, the way Nami looks at him is different. Before, he's a dangerous variable she can ride until he becomes a problem. After Arlong's defeat, he's an anchor. The hat goes back on his head, but you can feel that something permanent stayed with her. She's not tolerating a captain anymore. She's choosing a person to follow, a family to stand in. And this is where this arc completely broke me down as a future Marineford enjoyer, because you realize Arlong Park is the prototype, the template. Luffy sees someone's pain, doesn't demand they justify it, and then stakes his life on fixing the thing that's crushing them. Nami is the first full demonstration of that, and it sets the standard for how he's going to meet every other Straw Hat's darkness from here on out. With all of that said, let's get into that walk to Arlong Park and why it felt like the moment the Straw Hats stopped being a crew and started being a family. Found family versus blood. Belle-mère, Nojiko, and the Straw Hats that walk to Arlong Park only hits as hard as it does because we already understand what family means to Nami and how twisted that idea has become for her. Nothing could have prepared me for how One Piece takes this goofy thief character and then quietly builds one of the most honest found family stories I've seen in an anime. Where do I even begin with Belle-mère? This woman is a broke, traumatized ex-Marine alone on a battlefield, and instead of looking for safety or stability, she finds two starving kids and goes, "Yeah, these are mine now." Like, that is insane. She can't afford her own food, she's living on a tiny tangerine farm, and she still chooses Nami and Nojiko. That choice reframes everything. Family in this arc isn't something you're born into. It's something you actively decide to suffer for. And the show doesn't make it some cheap Hallmark moment either. You see the arguments at the table, Nami yelling about wanting maps and freedom, Belle-mère snapping back but then cooking anyway. You feel that mix of frustration and comfort. When Arlong shows up and Belle-mère literally dies because she refuses to deny them as her daughters, it's not just tragic, it's consistent with the way she's lived every single day. She's been paying the mom tax in blood and berries long before that gun goes off. Then there's Nami and Nojiko. Their relationship feels stupidly real. They fight, they tease, they push each other's buttons. But when it matters, Nojiko is the one taking bullets of gossip for Nami in the village, explaining her story to the Straw Hats, being the emotional translator for this girl who can't even say why she's hurting. They share grief. They share the same trauma, but they process it differently. And the story lets that be messy. Nami leaving with Luffy doesn't erase that bond. It stretches it. You never get the sense that Kokoyashi stops being home. In my opinion, that's what makes the Straw Hats as a second family so powerful. Luffy and the crew don't show up to replace Belle-mère or Nojiko. They show up to give Nami a space where she can be both the hyper-competent navigator and the little sister who's allowed to collapse in the dirt and say, "Help me." She's not just their map girl. She's someone they're willing to go to war for, the same way Belle-mère was willing to starve for her. And the village sees that. The crazy part is how Kokoyashi basically signs off on it. Nojiko and Genzo aren't like, "Oh no, pirates stole our child." They watch Nami leave and trust this idiot in a straw hat to do what the Marines never did, actually protect her. That bridge between her bloodless family on the island and her chaotic pirate family at sea is such a good payoff. Nami doesn't have to choose, she expands. Her world gets bigger, not swapped out. When you zoom out, it feels like a prototype for the bigger One Piece theme we see all the way up to Marineford. The people who stand by you when you're at your absolute lowest, when you're literally stabbing your own arm in the dirt, those are the ones who earn the right to be called family, blood or not. And if this is what Oda does with one village and one crew, what happens when that idea collides with the entire world at war? Nami and the sea, turning trauma into a dream. And that's where Nami just wrecks me on a whole different level. Because look at what her actual dream is. This girl whose entire life was ruined by pirates, whose village was literally choked by a sea-dwelling tyrant, chooses a future that keeps her on the water forever. Like, that is insane. Out of every possible path, she picks the one that puts her back in the jaws of the thing that traumatized her. In my opinion, that's not a contradiction, that's the point. The sea is the thing that hurt her, but it's also the only place big enough to hold her dream. Mapping the entire world isn't just some cute navigator side quest. It feels like an act of control. If she can understand the sea, chart every current, every storm, every island, maybe nothing like Arlong ever blindsides her again. When you know that this girl spent years walking beaches counting berries while watching Marines and pirates use the ocean as a prison wall, the idea of turning that same ocean into a map she owns, that hits different, right? And you feel that every time her expertise kicks in. Early on, I just thought, oh cool, She's the navigator, she points the ship. After Arlong Park, every navigation moment is basically a mini character arc. When she reads the currents in the Grand Line and saves the crew from getting wrecked by crazy weather, that's not random talent. That's years of weaponizing her trauma into hyper-competence. When she calls out a storm before anyone else even feels the wind change, I'm sitting there like, of course she does. She grew up needing to know when death was literally on the horizon. Real quick, I also really appreciate how the series visually locks her to the sea. You get Nami framed against these massive storm clouds, hair whipping, eyes narrowed, and you're like, this is the girl who's lived through emotional hurricanes. Then, you get her on a calm deck, orange sunset, soft waves, laughing with the crew, and it feels like the ocean itself is finally letting her breathe. The storms are her past, that constant turbulence, and the calm seas are this slow, fragile piece she's building with the straw hats. Nothing could have prepared me for how much a simple wide shot of a boat and a horizon could make me feel. And here's the wild pattern interrupt for me. Her dream isn't really about the paper. It's not about the ink lines. It's about reclaiming the sea. Every island she charts, every route she discovers with Luffy and the others, is her saying, this doesn't belong to Arlong. This doesn't belong to monsters. This belongs to me and my friends. With all of that said, let's get into how that reclaimed dream collides with the much bigger, much darker ocean of the world government and the war we eventually see at Marineford. How Oda uses comedy to hide the knife. And here's where Oda does something that honestly, nothing could have prepared me for. He hides that knife under a clown nose. Nami's entire character is structured like a long setup to a punchline that turns out to be a breakdown. We meet her as the greedy thief, the girl who will rob you blind, charge you interest, and then yell at you for being dumb enough to fall for it. It's funny, right? It feels light. It feels safe. In my opinion, that's the trap. Her obsession with money is a running gag. Her manipulation is this playful, oh, Nami swindled the boys again moment. Her temper? Constant comedy bit. She beats up Luffy for being reckless. She smacks Zoro for being lazy. She's drawing charts while charging navigator fees like she's running a small business on the sunny. You laugh? I laughed. We all laughed. The story makes you so comfortable with these traits that you stop asking why they're there. But once you hit Arlong Park and you look back, it's insane how different those same scenes feel. Nami demanding every single berry suddenly isn't just greed, it's survival math from a kid who has been told her village's freedom has a price tag. When she charges interest on loans, when she tricks people out of money, it starts reading like someone who has weaponized the one thing Arlong values to claw back an inch of control. All those jokes, they were coping mechanisms we were clapping for without realizing the cost. Even the temper becomes tragic. Her explosions at Luffy for risking himself, for rushing in without a plan, hit way harder when you understand she watched the one adult who loved her walk to her death with a smile. Of course she's furious at people throwing their lives away. Of course she hides that fear behind comedy violence and exaggerated reactions. How else do you keep functioning in that world without collapsing? And this is why the approach works so well. By the time the truth comes out, you haven't just watched Nami, you've bonded with her through humor. You've been in on the bit. So when the mask drops, when she's in the dirt stabbing her own arm and finally says, "Help me," it feels like a personal betrayal of your expectations. This arc completely broke me down because I realized I'd been laughing at armor she built out of trauma. Now, real quick, there is a risk here. If someone drops the series before Arlong Park, they walk away thinking she's just the greedy navigator gag character and miss all that depth. But for those of us who make it through, it feels like we've grown up with her. The jokes age into revelations. You start rewatching early episodes and seeing landmines you didn't know were there, and that's why Nami's past destroyed me. It's not just that it's sad, it's that you don't see how sad it is until it's way too late to protect yourself emotionally. With all of that said, let's get into how that same knife behind the smile storytelling scales up when we hit the world stage and Marineford starts swinging. Arlong Park versus Enies Lobby. Two very different rescues. So real quick, before we jump fully into the world stage and Marineford blowing the roof off the story, I have to talk about how Arlong Park kind of feels like the prototype for another huge type of One Piece arc. The big crew goes to war to save a friend, rescue mission. Because nothing could have prepared me for how clear that blueprint is once you even lightly think ahead to something like Enies Lobby. Obviously, I'm not deep into that arc yet, so no heavy spoilers, but even from cultural osmosis, you can tell Enies Lobby is one of those "we are literally fighting an institution to get our person back" moments. It's a rescue on a global stage, with the world government, with these massive symbols of power, and the Straw Hats basically screaming at the sky, "We don't care who you are, give them back." Arlong Park feels like the small-town version of that same insane energy. In my opinion, that's what makes this comparison so cool. Arlong Park is intimate and localized. It's one village, it's one tangerine orchard, it's one little girl who got trapped in a deal with a monster and a decade of trauma that just keeps looping. You're not watching nations move, you're watching Nami's life get slowly crushed under this one promise of 100 million berries that was never going to be honored. The scale is tiny, but the pain is so concentrated it almost hurts more. Enies Lobby, from what I understand, takes that same core idea and explodes it outward. Instead of one corrupt marine unit betraying a village, you've got entire towers of justice, government flags, and global implications. The Straw Hats aren't just punching a fishman warlord. They're basically declaring, "We will fight the world itself if it means saving our friend." That is crazy hype, but Arlong Park is like the raw, unfiltered version where all that world building hasn't fully kicked in yet, so it feels almost too real. For me, this arc completely broke me down because Nami has been here from the beginning. This isn't a new character with a tragic flashback dropping out of nowhere. This is the greedy navigator you laughed with, got annoyed by, trusted with the map, and then suddenly you realize you've actually been watching a hostage try to buy her own freedom the entire time. Like, that is insane. It feels less like a grand epic and more like hearing your friend finally tell you what they've been surviving. Both arcs share the same DNA. Luffy's unwavering support, the crew's willingness to throw hands with literally anyone, that feeling of, "We are your family, you're not doing this alone anymore." But Arlong Park strips all the spectacle down. No massive gates, no global propaganda machine, just a girl in the dirt, a hat on her head, and a captain walking to war. That simplicity gives it this brutal honesty I don't think you can ever fully replicate once the story scales up. And honestly, once I've actually lived through Enies Lobby and beyond, I really appreciate the idea of coming back and doing a full Arlong Park versus Enies Lobby breakdown. Which rescue arc wrecked you more emotionally and why? Was it the small-scale knife twist of Kokoyasi or the world-shaking punch of Enies Lobby? Let me know in the comments because I have a feeling my answer might change once I see what the Straw Hats do when the whole world is actually watching. The corrupt Marines, seeds of a bigger worldview shift. And that actually ties into something I did not expect Arlong Park to do at all. It made me side-eye the Marines. Like, nothing could have prepared me for how fast that symbol of justice image cracked the second that one officer walked into Kokoyasi and casually sold the whole village out. Up to this point, I'd kind of filed the Marines in my head as the cops of the sea. Strict, sometimes goofy, but ultimately the people standing between civilians and pirates, right? Then you get this guy strolling in, taking Arlong's money, literally stepping over the suffering of this village, and you just feel your brain go, wait, what? This is justice? This is the system Belle-mère was paying taxes into? In my opinion, that one corrupt marine hits harder than if Oda had shown us 10 evil admirals giving a speech. It's small scale, it's local. It's the dude who is supposed to be Nami's lifeline, and instead, he's the one who rips the rope away. When he confiscates Nami's entire 100 million berries, the money she bled and stole and humiliated herself to gather, it's not just theft. It's the world government walking into her last sliver of hope and casually kicking it off a cliff. Real quick, can we talk about how insane that is as a character beat? Nami doesn't just get betrayed by Arlong, the obvious villain. She gets betrayed by the uniform that's supposed to represent safety. That's why her hatred isn't just "I hate Arlong." It's "I hate pirates. I hate Marines. I hate anyone who claims authority over my life." After watching that, how could she not? If the people who wear justice on their backs are taking bribes and laughing while your village drowns, what does that word even mean? And this is where I started feeling those bigger world-building gears turning. Because if some random East Blue officer can be bought this easily, what does that say about the structure above him? Is this just one bad apple, or is the barrel already rotting? When we get to Marineford and you see propaganda, cover-ups, all that crazy spectacle, you realize Arlong Park was the test run. The Ark was quietly asking, "Are you sure the guys on the podium are the good ones?" Way before the war ever starts. The genius is that it never turns into a politics lecture. It's just Nami crying in the dirt as her savings vanish, and suddenly, the world government versus pirates. Conflict stops being abstract. It's not a chart, it's a girl with a tangerine orchard and a broken dream. This arc completely broke me down, not just for Nami, but for my whole understanding of this world. With all of that said, let's get into how, after this point, every Marine coat, every government flag, every justice slogan hits completely differently for me. Viewer reactions. Did Nami break you too? And here's the crazy thing. I know I'm late to Arlong Park, but the way you all talk about this arc, it feels like we all watched it yesterday. Every time I even mention Nami now, I see the same comments over and over. This was the first time One Piece made me cry. This is where Nami became my favorite character. Nothing could have prepared me for Belle-mère. That is insane consistency for an early arc in a 1,000-episode story. Real quick, I want to throw this back to you. At what exact moment did Nami stop being just the navigator and become something else for you? Was it her quietly counting berries with that dead look in her eyes? Was it Belle-mère choosing without hesitation, "I have 2 children," and accepting her death? Or was it the "help me" moment where she's stabbing the tattoo, bleeding in the dirt, and Luffy just puts the hat on her head? I need to know where you emotionally snapped. In my opinion, what blows my mind is how universal this feels. I'm getting comments from people who watch this as kids weekly on TV, from adults binge-watching on their phones after work, from manga readers who saw these panels in black and white decades ago, and they're all saying the same thing. This arc completely broke me down. Different ages, different countries, dub versus sub, alone in your room or with friends, and somehow we all arrive at that same lump in the throat when Belle-mère smiles for the last time. I've seen people say Nami jumped to their #1 spot right here and never left. Others say, this is the arc that convinced them One Piece wasn't just a goofy pirate show, but a story that was going to hurt them, heal them, and then hurt them again. Some of you admitted you had to pause the episode after she collapses in front of the village because you were crying too hard to read the subtitles. I really appreciate you being that honest because it makes me feel a lot less like an emotionally crumpled man on camera. For the new watchers who are somehow doing this blind with me, I want you in on this too. Before you start Arlong Park, write down your predictions about Nami. What do you think her deal is? Greedy, opportunist, secretly evil? Then come back after you finish and compare how wrong you were. Did anyone actually guess enslaved by a fishman warlord, trying to buy back her entire village with blood money? If you did, I'm side-eyeing you. So treat the comments like a group therapy session. Drop the exact scene that broke you, how you reacted, how long it took you to recover, and whether Nami climbed your favorite characters list that day. We all got blindsided by this tangerine orchard of pain, and talking about it is half the healing. Because from here on out, every time Nami smiles, we know exactly what it cost her. I know why Nami became the heart of One Piece for me. And once you know what it cost her, you can't unsee it, right? Suddenly, this greedy navigator who was scamming Luffy and Zoro in the early episodes is not just comic relief. She's a walking pressure cooker. When I first started One Piece, Nami was fun, a little shady, good at smacking Luffy when he deserved it, and I kind of slotted her in as the money gremlin of the crew. That was the bit. Nothing could have prepared me for the whiplash of realizing that every berry joke was actually a countdown. The second the story reveals, she's not just stealing from pirates for herself, she's literally trying to buy back her village from a monster. The entire arc of how I'd been watching her just flipped. Scenes I thought were goofy suddenly retroactively hurt. Every time she yelled about treasure, I started hearing, "I need to save my family," and that is insane. In my opinion, Nami is where One Piece plants its flag and says, this is what this series really is. It's the comedy of Luffy being an absolute idiot about navigation, sitting right next to Belle-mère, smiling as she chooses death rather than deny her daughters. It's the crazy build from lighthearted tangerine orchard vibes to a kid standing in a field of blood and oranges, deciding her dream is born from that pain. And then it says, you don't have to carry that alone. That's the found family thesis statement. What really got me is how often she quietly becomes the emotional center even after Arlong Park. You notice it? When danger hits, half the time we're watching Nami's face to understand how bad it actually is. She's the one reading the map, reading the weather, reading the room. She's the voice of reason screaming that this plan is stupid while still going along because these idiots are her idiots. And then you get those little moments like her clutching the log pose or breaking down over a damaged ship where the mask slips and you remember the girl who once carved her own arm just to be free. Once Nami's past hit, my investment in the Straw Hats exploded. If Oda is willing to go this hard, this early on the greedy navigator, what is he hiding behind every other smile? How many emotional landmines are just sitting there, waiting under Sanji's flirting or Usopp's lies or even Luffy's grin? This arc completely broke me down, ripped me up, and left me as an emotionally crumpled man staring at the screen like, oh, this isn't a fun pirate show anymore. This is therapy with sea monsters. With all of that said, let's get into the wild part. Nami's story was my warning shot that One Piece would stay with me. But Marineford proved just how far that idea of found family and inherited pain can actually go, and who ends up paying the highest price for it. What Nami's arc says about pain, hope, and moving on. Nami's arc is basically Oda grabbing you by the collar and saying, hey, pain isn't a side plot, it's the whole point. When you zoom out emotionally, her journey is insane. You've got this little kid watching her mom literally choose death rather than deny her daughters, then spending 10 years in this quiet, suffocating servitude, stealing from pirates, counting every single berry just to maybe buy back a home that was already stolen, and the system still spits in her face. That 100 million berry deal with Arlong? Rigged from day one. She does everything right, plays by the rules, and corrupt Marines just stroll in and wipe it all away. Like, that is insane. How do you not break after that? She collapses in the dirt, stabbing her own arm, trying to carve out the tattoo that's been carved into her life. And I'm just sitting there. This arc completely broke me down, wondering how you ever come back from that kind of betrayal. But here's what hit me. The story never pretends she gets over it. Healing in this arc isn't amnesia. It's not, well, Arlong's gone, time to be quirky navigator again. In my opinion, it's about learning to carry the same pain in a different way. She doesn't erase the tattoo, she covers it with something new. She leaves the village, but she's literally sailing around the world with a tangerine orchard on the ship. She's gone, but she's rooted. That's such a crazy visual metaphor for moving on without deleting your past. And hope for Nami is not some Disney Channel. Everything will work out energy. It's stubborn. It's ugly. It's her refusing to let Arlong or the Marines be the final editors of her story, even when every sign says, give up. That 10-year grind? That's hope. That moment she finally looks at Luffy, breaks, and says, help me? That's hope too, because admitting you can't do it alone might be the loudest, I still want to live. You can scream. Real quick, can we talk about how the Straw Hats respond to that? Because this might be my favorite part. They don't demand a trauma lore dump. They don't say, are you sure? They don't minimize it with, it can't be that bad. Luffy just puts the hat on her head, walks to Arlong Park, and the crew backs him like it's the easiest decision in the world. They fight for her, then afterward they don't treat her like she's broken glass. They just make space for her to be Nami, scars and all. Maybe that's why this arc sticks in my brain so hard. It's not just pirates, maps, and villages. It's that universal feeling of carrying stuff you wish you could scrub off your skin, finding people who see it and stay anyway, and slowly, stubbornly, building a future on top of all that wreckage. Nothing could have prepared me for how real that would feel in a shonen about rubber pirates. And the crazy part is, Nami is just the prototype. If this is how Oda handles one village and one girl with a tangerine orchard, what happens when the whole world's trauma hits the battlefield at Marineford? Looking ahead, how Nami's past shapes everything next. And that's what's actually terrifying looking ahead. Because if Nami is the prototype, that means every future arc is going to be testing this one girl who already hit rock bottom in a tiny corner of the map. Now, we're about to throw her into the Grand Line, into crazier villains, bigger systems, and I'm sitting here like, how does someone who's already lost everything once keep gambling her heart like that? In my opinion, Nami's trauma is going to be baked into every decision she makes from now on. Anytime we meet a new, benevolent Marine or a smiling government official, I'm instantly going to be side-eyeing them through her eyes. She literally had the symbol of her oppressor carved into her skin, and then got betrayed by the Marines on top of that. You're telling me she's just going to trust a uniform again? Like, that is insane. I'm expecting hesitation, anger, maybe even her snapping when people start throwing the word justice around too casually. And on the flip side, I feel like her growth in Arlong Park is what's going to force her to lean on the crew more. She tried the solo route. She tried sacrificing herself, her happiness, her childhood to save everyone. It ended with her stabbing her own arm in the dirt. After Luffy put the hat on her and walked to war without asking for the full story, how do you go back to suffering alone? If I see her pulling away in a future arc, I'm going to be yelling at my screen like an emotionally crumpled man, because we know she doesn't have to do that anymore. Real quick, this changes the emotional baseline of every danger scene for me. Before, when the Straw Hats rushed into a fight, it was hype, it was fun, it was shonen chaos, let's go. Now, anytime Nami is in the background watching a village get shaken down or a kid cry over money, I'm going to be tense. We're not just watching a navigator dodge cannonballs, we're watching someone who watched her mother die over a handful of berries decide to care again. Nothing could have prepared me for how much that would reframe even simple moments. And the themes here feel like a preview of the world stage. Corrupt Marines? We've only seen one tiny branch. Oppressive systems? Arlong literally ran a micro-government with taxes and bribery. Imagine that mindset scaled up to entire kingdoms. Found family? If this is what one small crew can do for one broken girl, what happens when we're at a place like Marineford, where everyone's grief and loyalty collide at once? With all of that said, let's get into how I'm going to be watching going forward. I'll be on tattoo patrol. Any shot that lingers on Nami's shoulder, any line about buying freedom, any village under the heel of some monster, I'm immediately thinking, is this an Arlong Park echo? If she freezes, if she gets unusually angry, if she steps up faster than anyone else, I want to catch those callbacks in real time with you. So, stick around because I really appreciate getting to experience this with people who already know what's coming. As we hit arcs that fans always compare to or rank against Arlong Park, I want to see if they break me down the same way or in completely new directions, and how Nami's past keeps quietly steering the story when the storms get bigger. Recap: the 5 moments that destroyed me the most. So, with all of that buildup, real quick, I want to rank the 5 moments that, in my opinion, absolutely destroyed me the most in Nami's arc. Because when I say this arc completely broke me down, ripped me up, and left me an emotionally crumpled man on my couch, I'm not exaggerating. These specific scenes are why. Number 5 for me is the destruction of the map room and the covering of the tattoo. That whole sequence feels like Nami literally walking back into her own trauma and just tearing it apart. The maps she drew as tools of her own oppression? Gone. The mark that branded her as Arlong's property? Covered. It's such a crazy visual shift, from her hunched over those charts for 10 years to her standing there as they burn, finally reclaiming her future and saying, "No, this body, this skill, this dream, they're mine now." At number 4, I've got the 100 million berry deal and the marine betrayal as one combined emotional nuke. 10 years of stealing, lying, and suffering, every berry funneled into this one promise: buy back the village. And then, the system that's supposed to represent justice just casually walks in and hands it all back to Arlong. Like, that is insane. Watching Nami realize that all her sacrifice meant nothing to the people in power, that the world will side with the oppressor if it gets a cut, made me feel physically sick. Nothing could have prepared me for how hopeless that scene feels. Number 3 is Nami stabbing her tattoo and collapsing in the road. Where do I even begin with that one? She's not just hurting herself, she's trying to carve the past out of her own skin, as if bleeding enough will erase what happened. The way she just keeps digging in, screaming, then finally just crumples in the dirt as if her body and soul both tap out at the same time, is one of the rawest depictions of self-hatred I've seen in this story. How do you watch that and not break with her? Number 2 has to be the help me with Luffy. 4 arcs of her pushing everyone away, and then in that one quiet, shaking request, she surrenders all of that armor. Luffy doesn't ask for an explanation. He doesn't need the details. He just puts the hat on her head and walks. That's One Piece's found family theme, condensed into a single moment of unconditional acceptance. You feel the entire crew's answer in that one step. And number 1, the crown jewel of pain, is Belle-mère's sacrifice. When she chooses to die as a mother instead of live as a stranger, it reframes Nami's entire existence. Her love, her guilt, her obsession with money, all of it. From that second on, every berry Nami touches is stained with survivor's guilt. How could that not haunt every choice she makes going forward? But the crazy part is how all 5 of these moments keep echoing later, and there's one specific way Oda uses them in a completely different arc that I did not see coming at all. Thank you for hurting with me. Final thoughts and CTA. And there's one specific way Oda uses them in a completely different arc that I did not see coming at all. But real quick, I just want to talk to you. Because if you're still here after reliving Nami stabbing her own arm, Belle-mère choosing to die with a smile, and that "help me" in the dirt, you chose to hurt with me. And I really appreciate that. Nothing could have prepared me for how intense it would be to go back through every single beat of her past in this level of detail. Watching it once broke me. Breaking it down like this arc completely broke me down, ripped me up, and left me as an emotionally crumpled man talking to a camera about tangerines. In my opinion, Arlong Park is that crazy dividing line in One Piece. For so many people, this is the moment where you either fully commit or you realize this isn't just a silly pirate show you throw on in the background. It's the point where the story looks you in the eye and says, hey, real trauma lives here. Making this video honestly deepened my attachment to the series in a way I did not expect. Like, that is insane. I went from Nami's the greedy navigator who loves money to every berry she touches is loaded with grief and sacrifice, and now I can't unsee it. Can I ask you something? Did you cry? Or at least get chills? When she's clawing at that tattoo and Luffy just silently puts the hat on her head? Did your chest tighten when the Marines stole her 100 million and the whole village walked out ready to die? If you felt even a fraction of that while watching or while hearing this breakdown, do me a favor. Drop a like, hit subscribe, and maybe share this with a friend who's just about to hit Arlong Park blind. Let them suffer beautifully with us, and I really want to hear from you. Drop a comment with the most devastating One Piece moment you've had so far. Is it still Nami's backstory? Is it something later? Did another arc completely break you down even worse? I'm going to be reading through those, for real, and I might feature some of your answers in a future video or on stream so we can all collectively process our trauma together, like the healthy pirates we are. With all of that said, let's get into what excites me most. Because even though Nami's past destroyed me, it also made me insanely hyped for what's coming next. If this is the emotional foundation this world is built on, what does that mean for Robin, for Sanji, for the rest of the crew? How much higher can this story climb, and how much harder is it going to punch us in the gut? I want you sailing with me for every heartbreak and every joy that's still waiting out there. We're not done. We're just leaving Kokoyasi's shore. Bonus. If you're watching One Piece blind, listen up. We're just leaving Kokoyasi's shore. But, real quick, I want to talk directly to the people who are watching One Piece blind with me. Because if you pressed play on this goofy pirate show expecting rubber punches and nose-picking gags, and then Nami's past showed up and drop-kicked your soul, yeah, same boat. Nothing could have prepared me for how hard this hit this early. You meet Nami as the greedy thief, right? She's clowning on pirates, stealing ships, chasing treasure. You think, okay, classic money-obsessed navigator, fun trope. And then the story rips the floor out and shows you Arlong's rule, the 100 million berry deal, Belle-mère's sacrifice, that tattoo she hates so much, she literally stabs her own arm. Like, that is insane for what's basically still the early game of this story. So, if you're blind right now and your instinct is, I need to binge to Marineford, I need to rush to the really hype arcs everyone keeps screaming about. In my opinion, slow down. Breathe. If Arlong Park already feels like this, if this one village and this one girl's trauma can wreck you this badly, that means the so-called build-up arcs are the good stuff. The meme that One Piece is just too long completely collapses when every stop on the journey has this much emotional impact. Here's something I'm doing that you might actually have fun with. Before each big arc, I jot down predictions. What do I think each Straw Hat's backstory is going to be? How do I think the next villain falls? With Nami, I literally wrote, probably scammed the wrong pirate once. And then Oda came in with Child Nami, the tangerine orchard, Belle-mère choosing to die rather than deny her daughters, the Marines rolling in to steal the money she spent her whole life saving. This arc completely broke me down, ripped me up, and spat me out as a new, emotionally crumpled man with a notebook full of wrong guesses. Try it. Before we hit the next major island, write down how you think Sanji's past went, or what you think Robin's deal is, or how Luffy is going to solve the next impossible wall. Then, after the arc, go back and see how Oda twisted it. It keeps you engaged, it makes every reveal feel crazier, and it lets you actually see how the story is playing with your expectations instead of just passively watching. And if you're blind, I really appreciate you treating this channel like your companionship. This is the place where we can ugly cry over "help me," talk about Luffy quietly putting the hat on Nami's head and walking to war, and still keep the comments spoiler safe for wherever we are. You don't have to feel weird about being late to the party. We're literally building our own crew out of latecomers. So, if Nami's arc leveled you, if you cried over a tangerine orchard and feel kind of ridiculous about it, you are not overreacting. You are exactly the kind of viewer this story is built for. Someone who actually lets it hit. I'm excited to keep getting destroyed by One Piece together, one island at a time. With all of that said, let's get into what this arc did to my view of Luffy and the crew as a whole. Sail on, where we go after Nami's past. What this arc did to my view of Luffy and the crew as a whole is honestly where everything changed for me as a viewer and as a creator. Nami's past isn't just a sad backstory. This is the moment I realized, oh, I need to document this whole insane journey, arc by arc, in long, messy, emotional videos. Or, I'm going to forget what it felt like to be this blindsided, because nothing could have prepared me for the gap between greedy little thief who steals from pirates and child trying to buy back her entire village with blood money from the monster who killed her mom. That jump is crazy. That impact is exactly why I was sitting there like, where do I even begin? And then my brain went, okay, we begin by hitting record. We turn this into an emotional archive while I'm still an emotionally crumpled man on the floor. So, what happens now? Where do we sail after tangerines and tattoos and that help me moment that just annihilated me? In my opinion, this is the first time One Piece fully showed its teeth, which makes me insanely curious about what's coming next. We've still got the rest of East Blue to clear, more early crew members to actually understand beyond the memes, and then that scary phrase everyone keeps whispering to me, just wait until the Grand Line. Why do you all say it like that? Should I be concerned? I've also heard tiny, very non-specific rumors about future arcs that apparently make Arlong Park look like the emotional tutorial level. No details, no spoilers, just names and vibes. And if this is the tutorial, like, that is insane. So the plan is to keep going in order. Next arcs, next islands, next big breakdowns of Luffy, Zoro, Sanji, Usopp, Nami, and whoever else jumps on this ship, all completely blind, all documented while it still feels raw. Real quick, if you're watching along with me for the first time, or you just like seeing someone get repeatedly wrecked by this story, make sure you're subbed and you have notifications on. That way, when the next breakdown drops, you don't find out 3 arcs late and miss that live, "Oh no, they did not just do that" reaction. I'm also posting smaller thoughts and panic attacks on other platforms between episodes. So, if you want the play-by-play of me slowly losing my mind, those links are in the description. The big idea for this channel is simple. I want a time capsule. Years from now, when we're deep into whatever legendary war or heartbreak you all keep hinting at, I want to be able to pull up this video and see exactly how Nami's arc hit me before I knew anything. Every tear over a tangerine orchard, every time I underestimated a character, every moment where this arc completely broke me down and rebuilt how I look at One Piece is getting saved. So, as we sail on from here, through rougher seas and crazier arcs, I'm trusting you all as my crew to keep me spoiler-free and emotionally unprepared in the best way. Keep your charts ready, keep your hearts open, and keep your eyes on the horizon. We're leaving Kokoyasi behind, but we're taking Nami's strength with us. Fade out on the Going Merry, cutting across a calm ocean, sun setting, Nami at the helm, and all of us quietly getting ready for the next storm.